right, welcome back to another episode of the Take Me on Tour podcast. I appreciate you being here, especially if you're a returning listener. If you're new here, I hope you like what you hear. This podcast is all about the touring music industry and everyone that's involved in it, whether it be an artist, crew member, booking agent, manager. We've only really had crew members on so far, but I'm hoping to get more of a variety as the show continues to grow. So we'll see what happens there. But I do have a guest on today's episode. It's Blake Bailey, which we will get to in just a minute. But I haven't done an episode in a couple of months, so just wanted to catch you guys up to speed on a couple of things that I have going on, which is really not much, as now is the slow season for touring. But there was a tour that I did back in December with the band Lions at the Gate, and I believe on the last episode I mentioned that it was a possibility that I could be doing that one, but I did end up doing it, and I was supposed to be doing backline, but I ended up just kind of drum teching more or less. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a merchandise manager, but I'm doing my best to try to transition into backline. And backline is just, all of the techs basically, guitar techs, drum techs, bass techs, that's all backline. So that's why I was taking this tour, was to kind of get my foot in the door and make the transition from merch to backline. So I'm a big fan of those guys. I was a fan of their previous band. As in case you don't know, 3 of the 5 members are from the band El Nino, and they started the band Lions at the Gate quite a few years ago now. And one of the things I did want to learn more about on this tour was guitars, because I was supposed to be doing all of backline from what I was told. But, once I got there, I talked to Diego, who plays guitar for the band, and I was like, hey, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to change strings? Do you want me to just get stuff on stage, because we don't have a lot of crew members? And he was like, just focus on drums. He was like, Josh, who's the drummer, has a lot of stuff going on. Just help him. He needs the most help. So I was like, all right, I guess that's easier on me. But I did kind of lose the opportunity to learn some stuff about guitars, but it's no big deal. It was only 6 shows. I mean, it went by pretty quick. It was a tour throughout all of Texas with Upon a Burning Body and Victims. So I'm from Texas. I live right outside of Austin right now, and I lived in San Antonio for almost 20 years and grew up in the Corpus Christi area, so I'm very familiar with all the venues and all the cities that we did. But also Upon a Burning Body is from San Antonio, so we did San Antonio, Corpus, Fort Worth, El Paso, Lubbock, so some really solid shows. And I hadn't done a club tour in probably a year and a half. Static X was probably the last one, and I was still doing merch on that one. So I was really glad to do this one. It was very low stress. I didn't feel like I was working at all, and I really enjoyed my time with the guys in Lions at the Gate. And I would love to do another tour with them in the future if something comes up. But I've met some of them throughout the years. Stephen Brewer, the bassist, I've met him probably 4 or 5 years ago on I think the Cradle of Filth tour. He was there, and I've met the rest of the guys as fans throughout the years, but never really worked for them or really got to know them. But everything just felt really natural. They had a very similar sense of humor, and it was just overall a great experience. I mean, we had only been there for 6 shows, but it felt like we had been out on a tour that was weeks and weeks long. I mean, it's only 6 shows, and at the end of it, we're hugging each other and thanking everybody. And I don't know, you would just think that it was a longer tour from the way that everybody really got along and just really appreciated everyone's work ethic and everything. So I'm hoping they have something coming up in the future that I can do with them again. We'll see what happens with that. Now would be the perfect time, as I'm currently at home and don't have any tours booked until the next Breaking Benjamin tour in April, which as far as I know, I believe I'm doing that as far as I know, but we'll see what happens with that as well. But now is the slow season, as I said. This goes for everyone. Everyone's looking for work right now, and this is normal every year. Right after the holidays, things just come to a standstill for the most part. There's still tours happening, but you're very fortunate as a crew guy if you're able to be working in January. I think the earliest I've ever toured was probably February, maybe twice. I think 2020 with Opeth and Graveyard. I think we were touring in February, and then I think again, maybe February of 2022 with Theory of a Dead Man. I think that was the earliest I've ever toured. I've toured into the beginning of December at times. Never really in January. Usually March, I want to say, is when tours start. But yeah, not a whole lot going on right now as far as touring goes, at least for me. But since I don't have any tours planned right now, this is the perfect time for me to start catching up on all the editing of these multiple terabytes of footage that I have from over the years. And When I say that, that is with no exaggeration. I've got multiple hard drives I can't keep track of. I mean, I'm shooting everything in 4K and everything just takes up so much space. So it's all piling up on me. And to say that I'm behind is a complete understatement. I've been taking footage of tours that I do and setting up GoPros and all sorts of things over the years. And I just, I always say I'm going to do it. I'm going to get home and I'm going to put these vlogs together. And I just, it's so overwhelming that I just end up kind of shutting down and not doing it. But I mean, look at this episode. I'm putting it out now. It's January, and we had this conversation in, I believe, October. So it just shows you kind of the way things have been going. But I'm looking to change that. Here in 2025, it's time to get all these videos and vlogs out and let everybody see this footage that's been sitting around on my hard drive for many years now, because it's not doing anybody any good there. So a lot of this is long overdue, including this episode. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff coming. And I'm hoping to be more consistent with the podcast as well. But as you can see, if anybody's seen any of these episodes, I mean, they're an hour long at the shortest, probably. I mean, everything is like an hour. The first episode we did is probably an hour and 45 minutes. I mean, there's just really long episodes, and I'm trying to make them a more reasonable length. But when we get talking, there's just a lot of stuff to get into. And then the editing process on top of that, I put a lot of B-roll. If you haven't seen any of the video versions, I put B-roll, which is extra footage of behind the scenes, reference footage to what we're talking about inside the videos. And it just makes it a little bit more entertaining, and it gives you something to look at that goes along with what we're saying and what we're talking about. So if you haven't checked out the video version, consider doing that on YouTube and or Spotify. But also, if you haven't seen it, I did just put out a new vlog from when we were at Louder Than Life Festival at the end of last year. It's about an hour long and has side stage footage of Korn and Spirit Box, and it shows the merch tent and the Korn coffee tent, and it gives you a behind the scenes look of everything that goes on at Louder Than Life at one of these Danny Wimmer festivals, and shows you a lot of the behind the scenes. So I'll link that in the description for you guys if you'd like to check it out. But anyway, let's get into this chat with today's guest. Today's guest is Blake Bailey, who I've been able to tour with a handful of times now. He's currently the drum tech for Breaking Benjamin, and he also plays drums for Keith Wallen's band and is also the drummer for the band The Dead Rabbits. He's come such a long way, but when I met him, he was working for Lacey Sturm, who were the first of four on a Breaking Benjamin tour a few years ago. It was, I believe, 2022. It was Lacey Sturm, Starset, Seether, and Breaking Benjamin. So you'll hear more about that in our conversation. But this is my first in-person guest. He's one of my favorite people on our crew, and I'm so glad to have him on the podcast, and so glad he's part of the Breaking Benjamin crew. So here is my conversation with Blake Bailey. All right, we're here with Blake Bailey, the master of the game 20 questions, would you say?
I would say that, actually. I feel good about that one.
Is it 20 questions or 21 questions?
I don't know. I think it is 20 questions, but somewhere along the lines, I've been playing that game for so long. And probably 5 or 6 years ago, we probably just started saying 21 questions, and now it's what it is now. It's 21 questions.
Yeah.
You need that extra question sometimes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, especially when we just played a couple of days ago, and it's like,
I think I used that last question.
Yeah, right on the 20th, maybe 21st. Yeah.
I love that moment when it all lines up. You're like, oh, yeah, there it is.
But anyway, how's your day going, man? You just came back from a diner, you said?
Yep. It's a great day off. We're in Sacramento. Beautiful weather. Woke up very late. It was a proper day off. And yeah, we went over to Black Bear Diner, ate a bunch of breakfast meats, and ate a whole banana cream pie. So.
And got one for later too, you said?
And later, yep. Yeah. I got a chocolate cream pie for later. You got to switch it up a little bit. But
that's awesome, man. And yeah, you're my first in-person guest, so I've only done 3 episodes.
What?
Yeah, the first 2 were just me and the co-host. Third one was with Austin Zangi, who I think you know.
What? But no one ever in person?
No. You and I have been planning this since earlier this year, so probably 6 months or so. We were supposed to do it on the previous tour we were on. Mm-hmm. Of course, I had issues. I had everything all set up, and it just didn't work out.
Audio gremlins.
Yeah, so that sucked. And then we were supposed to do it again at Sonic Temple.
Yep.
And then I flew home early because for whatever reason, and they didn't need me anymore.
Yep.
Not that I got fired or anything, but Yeah, it was just more so like they were doing festivals and I wasn't needed, so they just sent me home. So I was like, damn, I had plans to do a few episodes on the day off or whatever, and we're like 6 months later and finally doing it.
We're here, man. I didn't know I was the first one. That's an honor.
Yeah, first in-person guest, and I just came from the food court at the mall with Keith and Cowboy, and of course, I was just like, they saw me grab my stuff, and they're like, oh, you're gonna leave, and I was just like, well, I got to go get ready for this podcast with Blake. And they were like, it's okay. I didn't want to do it anyway. I was
See,
like,
this is how it's going to start. Now everyone's going to want it.
Yep.
And this is my first time ever being on a podcast.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a dream come true.
That's awesome,
I feel like I'm a real white guy now. Like, I'm on a podcast.
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing it. And I saw Jerome on the way in. Like I said, he saw me with that one beer.
Yep.
And he was just like, same thing. He was like, I didn't want to do it anyway. And so, like, I don't know. I just never thought, like, so many people would be supportive of, I guess, of what I'm doing. And
dude, I think it's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm always afraid to put myself out there because I'm always afraid of backlash or like what somebody might think.
Screw 'em, dude.
And yeah, man, it's just like I've had this whole idea for years now, and it's finally like coming to fruition now, and it's just taken forever. But
honestly, I know we just started, but it feels like you've been doing it for years.
That's good.
I walk in and it's like, all right, this is a proper little setup. You got a towel in the dude. Look at you, man.
Yeah, so the water wouldn't leak through because I didn't have a plastic bag.
You thought it all. Dude, you thought everything through. I love it.
Yeah, I'm glad. If I didn't see Jerome in the parking lot, we might only have one beer. You might have been drinking the only beer we had.
I would have just sipped it. I would have made it last the whole hour and a half.
So we're currently on the tail end of this fall co-headlining tour with Breaking Benjamin and Stained.
Yep.
We've got support from Daughtry and Lakeview, and you're currently drum teching for Shaun Foist, who plays drums in Breaking Benjamin, and you have since earlier this year. Mm-hmm. So how's that going? I mean, it's been about 6 months, I guess, 2 tours now, teching for Shaun.
It's going great. There's a lot of stuff I really like about this gig. For starters, it's one of the more proper levels of touring that I've done, at least on like the crew side of thing. So that's great. Shaun is just the best person I've ever worked with at that level. He likes to work with me and the sound guy. He's very open to new ideas and changing stuff up that, you know, a lot of drummers, like even me, like I get used to playing my drums a certain way for years, and I don't like to change things up.
Yeah.
But Shaun, I mean, I came in, he was like, listen, as long as you and the front of house guy, Nate, are happy, he's just like, do whatever you want. I'll just check it, make sure we're good. But he's great to work for. He's got a lot of really good vendors or endorsements. So we work with DW, who's, you know, obviously a lot of people would agree the best sounding drums out there right now. We got Sabian cymbals. He's with Aquarian, and they're super good to us. Basically, all his endorsements they're really friendly, and they take care of us really well. Like I place orders, and they're always on top of it. Quick responses. They never have any issues. And just the gig in general, man. It's a great crew. I mean, everybody is really happy to be here. Everyone really likes what they do. Everyone's really good at what they do, and that's just it's more rare than you might think in the industry. You know, like you might get a crew they're really good at what they do, but you know, it's just they don't love what they do every day. And
absolutely, and that's there's a big difference in that. I talk about that a lot too. That like, you know, I was talking to this with Josh, you know, who's doing front of house right now. He's filling in for Nate, and there's just a difference in this industry. Certain crew members, you know, like certain people are just meant to do this. Certain people want to do this. Some people, this is just their job. Some people, they're just like, well, I hate it. I'm just ready to go home. Like, I don't care to see any of these bands. Like, no hangouts, nothing. So there's just different types of people. And I don't know. It's just, you can easily tell who's who after just spending a few days with them and the way they talk and the way they act and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I'm glad that things are going well with Shaun, and you're also playing drums for Keith as of the last, I want to say, 2 years maybe?
Let's see. I met Keith and Jerome. Well, it was probably one of the first tours back from COVID. So let's call it like mid 2021. So actually, it's been about 3 years now.
Okay. Yeah. And so for anyone that doesn't know, Keith Wallen from Breaking Benjamin has his own band, and Blake plays drums. Our stage left guitar tech Cowboy plays guitar, and then Nick. What's
Bedrosian.
Yeah,
My
Nick
sweet
plays
baby
bass.
angel.
Yeah, so Nick just joined this year, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you guys have been going pretty hard all year. Breaking Ben, then
Yes.
Keith Wallen,
Yeah.
then Breaking Ben, then Keith Wallen, and it's
Been
like
a busy year, right? Sandwiched back between, which is really cool. It's a lot. It's really cool though. We get cool opportunities when we do stuff like that, and we're all there. And Keith was smart the way he did this. He's like, oh, let's make sure we got my guys, and when you're looking to hire people that work in this industry, that tour and stuff all the time, like scheduling is really critical, especially from the artist side of things. I mean, if I can't do a tour as a drum tech, it's not the end of the world. Well, there's a million drum techs, but getting another proper artist in your band that's going to change the chemistry of your like stage presence, all that stuff, it's tricky.
sure.
So for him to think about it like that, like, okay, cool, let's get these guys. Like, we know that on top of the scheduling thing, it's like, well, they're touring guys. They know how to tour. They're seasoned, and they're on top of that, they're tech guys.
Yeah.
So it's not just getting somebody that might be able to play an instrument, but they're going to come out here and know how everything works and be able to troubleshoot our own problems, because at that level we're not rolling 12 deep with a crew bus.
Yeah, and I think for those exact reasons and plenty other reasons, Keith really ended up with a really good group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you guys have talked about that before.
Yeah.
I think we know the kind of person Cowboy is and how much he cares about what he does.
Exactly.
And he also wants to play, and he's just a great all-around guy. And then, you have that same vibe and passion for everything as well, which you talked about. And then you brought Nick in, and you were like, I think he's going to be like a really good fit.
He's
and
the perfect fit.
Yeah, and I think just looking at you guys as a band, I think you can tell. And I know it's been a long year, but I'm pretty sure it's been very rewarding.
It's been great. This year has been really stellar for me and the guys. And yeah, man, I mean, I get to work primarily this year with two very well-oiled camps. Much different scenarios with both of them, but everyone cares and everyone has a good attitude. And that reminds me of what you were just saying too about, like, there's people that it's kind of interesting to see the people that want this life and work really hard to get this life, and a lot of time they don't get it. And then you have people where it's like they just kind of wound up here,
right?
And they kind of, like, you see people like that, they generally take it for granted.
Yeah, I feel like those are the ones that feel like they could be doing something better.
Exactly. Like they didn't try to get here.
For sure.
A lot of them were in bands, and it just ended up being like, oh, can you come out and do this? And then 5 years go by, it's like, oh, I'm a backline guy now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've always wanted, like, it sounds weird, but like ever since I really learned what touring was, it was like, I want to be a crew guy, or I want to be an artist too, but also if I end up just being crew and TMing and backline for the rest of my life, dude,
yeah,
it's a great life.
I know, and that's the thing too, is that like sometimes people, like I'm still a fan of what we do, and I'm still a fan of music, and I'm still a fan of, like, I may be burnt out on certain things like genres and or concerts or whatever, but there's a reason I'm here, and there's a reason that so many people have told me you need to go to country because that's where the money is, and I'm like, I get that, but I don't think I would enjoy it as much. I don't think I would enjoy it the same way. Like, we're doing Aftershock tomorrow, and imagine if that were a country festival, like I would just be like, I'm gonna sleep for like 12 hours because I just don't care to.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just not the same for me. We're gonna be Iron Maiden is right after us on that same stage. Judas Priest is there. Slipknot was there yesterday. Slayer the day before, and it's just like I didn't sacrifice all of this stuff that I did to go to a country festival. I did it to go to something that I want to be around. But you were also earlier this year. I think it was this year, you were even drum teching for Pete Weber. Is that right? Was that this year with Fear Factory?
I think that. Yeah, that was real early.
Like
in the
January,
year. It was January,
February, something like that.
Yeah. So I met Pete. I was playing for a band called Butcher Babies all last year. Love that band. Love that camp. They're all really, really good people. The music's really fun to play live. I did a long tour with them in Europe. I want to say it was like 9 weeks. And Fear Factory was headlining. And about halfway through the tour, Pete kind of just asked me, he's like, hey, man, maybe we kick you some cash. Like, can you help me take down the kit and stuff every night? And I was like, yeah, I'm a drum tech, dude. Absolutely. So I did that. And then I fell in love with those guys. Dino is one of the sweetest guys ever. He's a really, really good guy. Pete's great. All those guys. It's a really good camp. Dude, not to mention they're so good live. I mean, that music is if you've ever heard Fear Factory, like
absolutely,
it doesn't sound like you could do it live
for sure.
And then they just get up there and just crush it. It's wild.
Not to mention they've had that sound since the 90s.
Exactly.
You know, it's like very innovative.
Well, when I first heard them too, I thought I didn't think it was the 90s. Like I was like, oh, this is
something that came out more recent.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, this is the band that everybody is trying to be like.
For sure.
You know, this is the band that spurred all of that kind of chuggy.
Yeah.
You know, like that. No one was doing that back then. And that was just anyway. Fear Factory, great guys. So yeah, Dino hit me up and asked me to come out for their January tour with Machine Head. And I told him I couldn't do. Originally, I was like, I'd love to, man, but I can't. I got to go do Shiprock with Keith.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask. And you left early for some reason, but I couldn't remember what it was for.
Yeah, and then he told me, he was like, well, how much can you do? I was like, I can do about 2.5 weeks. He's like, well, we'd love to have you, which is awesome. It shows there's a really good relationship there, and there's that he sees value in what I do, which is very, very cool. So I went out. I did 2.5 weeks with Pete and Dino. Super fun. That was a really cool tour. Orbit Culture was playing right before Fear Factory, and I'd never heard of them before. And dude, have you heard them?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Dude,
so I never thought I would see them live because I don't even know where they're from. France, maybe?
No.
Where are they from?
I should know this. I know Sweden's wrong.
I wanted to say Sweden or France, but I could be wrong on both.
I'm pretty sure it's not France.
Okay.
I want to say it's something like Scandinavian though.
Okay.
I think it is Sweden.
So yeah, and I went to that show, but I don't know if I knew you were on that tour yet. And also
I wasn't on that show though.
Oh, that's
I'd already
okay.
Gone.
So yeah, I went to go see the show in San Antonio. So I guess you're right. You weren't on there.
Yeah. I started somewhere. I think I started on the west side of the tour, and I followed it up, and then we did some Canada dates.
Yeah.
And then I think I left. Oh no, I actually left out of Canada because it was so funny. I had to fly from Saskatoon, Canada, all the way to Florida for Shiprock, and it was the most like jarring change in weather.
Oh my god!
Because it was snowing and cold in Saskatoon, and then it's January in Florida.
For sure,
You get down, it's sunny. It's like pretty warm considering. I'm just like, it was very strange. It was like the weather equivalent to like jet lag. You're like, what is going on right now?
So you worked for Pete earlier this year.
Yep.
You worked then you went to Breaking Ben, then Keith. Is there anything else that I've forgotten this year that you might have done, or that's pretty much been your year?
That's been my year this year. It's been a lot of Keith and Breaking Ben. I want to say I definitely did. I did some stuff with Escape. I did some
earlier this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost positive that was this year.
Yeah. Well, it's been pretty busy for you either way, but I mean, I guess that's a good thing because the last time I talked to you on the previous tour, you said that you have your stuff in storage and you were looking to stay on the road like 12 months a year at the time, right?
Last year was my record. I was home for 37 days.
Out of the year.
Yeah, which is great. For me, I love that. Like, I like being on the road. I don't have much of a circle at home. I've got great friends at home, but a lot of them also tour. So when I am home, one or two of them aren't home. I've got one really good friend back in Arizona.
So you have no real obligation to be home.
Yeah, I get home. Like, I don't have kids. I don't have pets. So I get home and it's like, I don't know. I find myself spending more money.
For sure.
And don't get me wrong. When I go home, I love to fish. I love the outdoors. But when you're home for more than 2 weeks, it's just a lot. And then I just sit around and like, to me, another thing I love about crewing is having a sense of purpose every day. Like, there's always something to do. And it's not always, what's the word? Self-gratifying. I don't know if that's the right word. That's not the same as like purpose. Like someone needing something from me and me fulfilling that obligation is something that's really good for my mental health.
And it kind of goes along with like there's a couple of memes that go around like, and it is true. Like whenever you get home from tour, it's like, what do I do with myself? Like you're in a schedule of one completely different lifestyle, and you go home and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do right now between 3 and 6? Like, what do you do?
I call it the bubble. When you're on tour, you're in this bubble where it's like you don't think about where you have to go. You're gonna get there. Right. You don't think about where you're gonna go to eat. You're going to catering.
Correct.
You're not presented with a whole lot of decisions.
Right.
It's more just like you're in a really tight routine, And certain people thrive in that environment, and I'm one of those people. But when I get home, it's like, it's almost just, it sounds weird, but it's like too much freedom. It's like,
for sure.
I gotta decide where I gotta go do this and that. It's
right.
just,
It definitely takes, it takes me a few days, sometimes even a week or two to get like this is my schedule. Like from this time to this time, I typically do this, and it's going to take a while, but I mean, especially these tours, I mean, to me, this is nearly 2 months. This is about my point where I start to kind of want to go home. I mean, you obviously have a lot. You have a lot more.
I wish I had a gig lined up. Best case scenario, I'd have a gig lined up about 1 week after this tour.
Okay.
A week at home was nice. Do some laundry, kind of just lay around. And I say that. I always try and plan to do that when I get off tour. I'm like, for a week, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to be productive. I'm tired. I'm beat up. And then normally by like the third day,
you're ready to do something.
Oh, dude, like, God, I'm a piece of shit,
Yeah.
Like,
and if you're going anywhere, where are you staying right now? What state?
Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my stuff's not in storage, so I have a studio lockout.
Was it in storage at one point earlier?
No, but so what I have a studio lockout where I keep my drums and I play there. It's a practice space. It's small.
Okay.
It's about half the size of this hotel room.
Okay.
And it's just my room. So I sold my bed, I sold my TV, all my furniture and stuff. So I'll find it later. But I have a picture on my phone of all of my earthly belongings in that studio lockout.
Oh, really?
It's all just boxed up against a wall. It's mostly just clothes, a lot of my outdoor equipment, and my drums. That's it. And I love it. I'm like the opposite of a hoarder. Like I purge. I'll like do a big purge and get rid of a bunch of clothes and stuff like that. And then a couple days later, I'll be like, I could do another one, I think. I can get rid of some more stuff.
I could probably learn a couple things from you because I keep way too much stuff.
Dude, I love getting rid of stuff. It's the best feeling. I know it's weird, but like it's
now that's probably how more people should live than not. But,
but there's a balance there, and I'm definitely on the other side of that.
Like you don't have
I probably am too bad.
Well, you don't have like a record collection or anything.
I have a very small record collection. It's one box, and I don't even have a record player anymore, so that keeps me from. Like I won't get rid of that collection, but it keeps me from buying more records because I'm like, I don't have a record player right now. I don't need to buy that. You know?
I don't have a record player, never have, but I mean, I want to get one eventually, but I've got like, I don't know, 60, 70 albums.
See, I'm not that sentimental. Like to me, even having the records that I have is like kind of weird. I feel weird even owning them, but if I ever buy a record, I'm going to listen to it. Like, I don't think that's a me thing. I think it's very cool to collect records, and whether you listen or not, I think that's a really cool hobby or but for me, like, I'm a very, like, if I buy something, I don't buy stuff just to have.
I see.
Like, I don't like I also don't take care, like, the best care of stuff. That's like the big reason I'm really not too sentimental. I actually used to have. Have I told you about Peter? Peter the tour goat.
No, but you brought him up the other day. So the other day you mentioned. Oh, I saw him.
Well, that's not.
That's
him.
a new one.
That's a new one. But,
okay.
So I had a little stuffed animal goat. His name is Peter the tour goat.
Right.
And I brought him everywhere on tour, and I take pictures with him. He has it on Instagram. It's still up. And then I lost him one day in Canada, and I cried.
This year?
No, this is a couple years ago, I think. But I'm not kidding you. I cried.
Oh my god!
And that was just a reminder of why I'm not a sentimental person, because I don't take care of stuff.
Imagine if it were a dog or something.
Exactly,
Jeez.
a kid. I left my kid in Canada. That's fine. You just get another one. It'll be fine.
Oh god!
But that's part of it. Yeah, like I remember as a kid, I used to get like posters from shows, and they would just sit in my back seat of my car, and they would get torn up, and I was just like, I'm not that guy. I don't.
Damn. Yeah, I've kind of loosened up a little bit. I used to like hold on to every little thing, and it had to be in pristine condition.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of lightened up a little bit, but I definitely I have a full blown office of tour posters, memorabilia, records. Like, it's got a whole vibe and a desk, and it's where I typically do the podcast when we're not on the road. And that's just like I've wanted that for years, for like probably 15 years I've been wanting that, and I just never had the extra space to where I have a whole bedroom dedicated to that, and I just managed to make it happen in the last few years.
And that's part of it too with me. I jump around so much. I'm just like, and like I said, I think being sentimental is very cool. It's not my thing.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And I mean, yeah, you've had a busy year, and I'm glad it's been busy. And you're teching for Shaun, as I was saying, and he's had a handful of techs over the last. I've been with Breaking Ben for 3 years, and you might be the fourth or fifth one, but I think you're in this for the long haul, from what I understand. Especially with the whole Keith thing, and I think that was kind of a discussion.
Yeah.
If I
when I came
remembering
in,
correctly?
that was something that Jerome and Shaun wanted with the next tech. They were just kind of like, it's fine. Like, you're a backline guy. Like, I get it. Like, you don't need necessarily. You can get by switching out techs on tours. Like, drum teching can be relatively straightforward. I wouldn't argue that this gig is relatively straightforward. There's a lot going on up there.
Yeah.
And I think that they were just kind of like, we should just have a guy.
You mean like the electronics and
There's a lot of
stuff like
electronics
that?
going on that kit.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love the challenge of this kit. I love working with triggers. They used to scare me.
Right.
But working with triggers and sample pads and stuff like that, it's a good skill to have because it's becoming very like meta in the industry.
For sure.
Like, it's almost like these older drum techs that have been around for 20 years are starting to lose gigs or underperform on their gigs.
I can see that.
There's new technology. I mean, same thing with guitar teching. Like, I don't know anything about guitar teching, but I do know Axe-Fx's weren't around 10 years ago.
For sure.
And guitar techs used to work on tube amps and all that stuff. And Cowboy talks about it all the time. It's like nowadays, it's like having a fractal tech is almost more valuable than having a guy that can.
Yeah, which he said too. Cowboy, he was just like, he's a fractal guy, and he's gotten gigs because of that.
His phone rings off the hook because he's a fractal guy, because that's just what everyone in the industry is using now. And a lot of guys, a lot of bands, artists now are using sample pads, mostly the SPDX, but they're using all sorts of sample pads. And even outside of just regular triggering, you're triggering for gates, so you have to know how they work and have. There's a lot to it too with different drummers playing different ways, playing different drums. Like, certain triggers that I've used for this band wouldn't work for this band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it's like you have to be you're more than a drum tech in 2024, as a lot of people are.
Exactly.
You and Cowboy and Keith have this really unique setup here.
I know, it's great. It's great. Dude, I mean, when I got the call, or I wasn't the call, Jerome, we were rehearsing for Shiprocked, and Jerome called me in, poured me a glass of bourbon, and was just like, how would you like to drum tech for Shaun?
Yeah.
Full time. And I was just like, oh my God, yes. And at that time too, it was also, I was looking at Keith's schedule for the year and a lot of the other bands I work for. And I was like, I told Keith from the beginning, like, if I take this gig, I'm taking Keith over everything. And this year, if I hadn't got the Break and Bend gig, I would have probably lost a good amount of work because of that schedule, which is fine.
Yeah.
I was going to do it, but it was something that was stressing me out. So when Jerome came to me with that, it was just like, oh my God.
It kind of saved the whole thing.
Yeah. And now it's just like, it used to be something I really worried about with scheduling. And now it's like, oh, cool. We're pretty good now,
Yeah.
Like, I can fill the work in between these two things much easier than trying to do a full year's worth of scheduling and then squeeze this and that in there,
Yeah, and it's crazy how that worked out,
Dude,
and
it's great.
from my understanding too, I think a lot of these notes were from when we were planning to do this 6 months ago. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you did cancel some other work, correct, to be a part of this. Is that right?
I actually got about a whole year's worth. I wouldn't say a whole year's worth, but gigs going all the way up until just about where we are now.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
Which worked out because a lot of those gigs they weren't Weekend Warrior, but it was like 3 weeks in Europe here, a 2-week West Coast run here, which I don't like. I really like, if I'm going to be on the road, I want to be on the road.
Like consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, to me, sweet spot, 12 weeks. Doing 2 6 weeks back to back, that's great. And then like a week off and then right back into it.
Wow.
I love it.
That's crazy. Yeah, Disturbed just announced a tour that goes from like the end of February to like May. And I was like, oh my God.
That's what I like. I love, well, for a lot of reasons too. Like, you're out there making money. You're not spending a lot of money. That's the big one. Because it's like, if you do a 2-week tour and then you're off for 2 weeks, it's like, not only are you not making that money now, but you're at home, probably not doing much, spending money,
And also as exhausting as like, well, I mean, for me, I mean, you and I do two completely different positions, but like these shed tours, I love shed tours because I like the vibe. I like the outdoors. It feels more like a hangout than an arena tour does. Like, the food trucks at the end of the night, Stained literally has a TV outside their bus, with camping chairs and the cold weather and the hoodies. And like, I don't know, it just depends. Like, obviously you could do this in summer too, and there will be none of that.
No.
Like it's people want to get out of the
sweaty.
heat, but like something about just, it's more of like there's more camaraderie, I guess you could say. Like, just, I don't know, it's more, I just like the vibe, but they are very exhausting. But what I was trying to say is that like, we have a pretty easy schedule. You know, we do no more than 2 shows in a row. So like if you were doing, let's say you were saying 12 weeks is ideal. 12 weeks on this versus 12 weeks on a club tour is
absolutely.
Because club tours will do, 12 shows in a row or something.
I've done 19 in a row before.
Yeah, I don't even know what my record is, but that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I come from, like, I'm still relatively new into this shed and arena world. I'd say this is probably my 6th, maybe, shed arena tour. Like, I come from theater and clubs.
Yeah.
Where it is, 5 shows in a row is a good schedule. You're like, oh, cool, just 5,
Yeah.
But also, the flip, there's pros and cons of that too. I mean, a lot of club and theater touring, especially if you're not headlining, you're loading in at like 2-3 p.m. sometimes. Sure. Your days are a little bit shorter, but
that's true.
You also could be on a bandwagon or a van too.
Yeah.
And there's just, I don't know. But what I like about the longer tours, like the 12-weekers, or not 12-weekers, but doing 2 6s or a 9 and a 5, whatever, is that you just really lock into a rhythm. Once you lock into that rhythm, the time just kind of flies. And I don't find it too exhausting if I'm locked in. But now when it starts changing up drastically every day, absolutely that can kill you. Or if you're doing super long days. I mean, when I was TMing that headliner last year, it was a theater tour. I was getting up at 7:30 every day, and I wasn't finished loading the trailer until about 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And we were doing about 5-6 shows in a row, then day off, and that tour beat the crap out of me. But I don't know. I did go straight from that tour into, or no, I had gone straight into that tour from another 6-week tour. I was playing for Butcher Babies for 6 weeks, and then I didn't even get off that bus. Actually, it was the same bus I picked up Escape the Fate.
No way.
Yeah, it was the same.
Wait, one band was renting the bus and the other band was about to rent the same bus?
Yep.
What are the odds of that? Did that work out a certain way for that reason?
Kind of the same management.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and one of the management partners actually owns the bus company too. So it's like, oh, cool.
I was like, that's a major coincidence.
Yeah, no, it worked out great though.
Yeah,
because I was like 12 weeks on one bus, and it was cool.
So compared to everything else you've done, in your career, I mean, would you say that like working with Shaun and Breaking Ben is probably your biggest gig as a drum tech?
As a drum tech, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but not necessarily your biggest gig ever?
No,
or what would you say?
I would say that probably this is my biggest gig so far. Prior to this, like I said, I come mostly from the theater and club world. Even when I was doing arenas and amphitheaters prior to Breaking Ben, it was always on like, I was working for like the 1 of 4 or the 2 of 4.
For sure. Yeah.
So this being a part of like a camp with 4 buses and trucks, and that was very new to me.
For sure. Yeah, and that's the one thing I had here in my notes too, is that like when I first met you, so you were doing TMing, driving, and everything for Lacey Sturm, who was opening the show.
Yeah, that was actually me mostly cutting my teeth on TMing. I had been working for a guy named Zach Yosh, great guy, Powerline Management. He's he's the guy in Arizona. For all the bands down there, he used to be a promoter. He got into managing. Great manager, man. Really good guy. And I just kind of worked for a lot of his bands. I'd worked for Escape. I'd worked for Dead Rabbits. He had a rapper named Whitney Payton. I did some drumming for her. And pretty much anytime I would just tell him, I'm like, dude, I want work. Like, I want to go out. Like, I'm young. I haven't done a ton of touring. Like, I want to get into this. And he was like, well, I just signed Lacey Sturm, and she needs a TM driver, merch. We need one guy to do this. We're going to be 1st of 4 on these arenas, and we can't do a whole crew or anything like that. And you're going to be in a van with Lacey, her husband, and their 3 kids and a dog.
And that was it. You're the only crew member.
Yeah, it was just me, and I had never met them.
So she was doing acoustic. So he's in the band.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like they were playing together, just them two.
Yeah,
and I couldn't quite remember.
It was really funny. It was one of those moments where it's like, I shouldn't. This doesn't sound like it's going to be good.
Right.
But like, I really need to just nut up and take the work and get the experience. And it's an arena tour. I'm going to meet a lot of good people. And it ended up being probably, if not one of my favorites, it would be my favorite tour I've ever done.
That particular tour, working for Lacey.
Lacey and her husband are two of the best people I've ever met in my whole life. They are incredibly smart, like extremely welcoming. Professional. They're just you want to be around them. Like I miss them every day when I'm just like, dude, sometimes I feel like I just need to go fly out there and just like recharge because I haven't seen them in a while. Like they're the best. Their kids are absolutely the most well-behaved kids ever. I mean, you're jumping in a van with 3 kids and a dog, and I still had the time of my absolute life. Like they are just the sweetest. I love them. I can't say enough good things about them.
And as you were saying too, like you put that on paper, that doesn't sound like a good tour. No. That doesn't sound like, that sounds like something a lot of people would pass on, you know, because be like, hey, I'm past this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not.
I'll tell you what, I learned so much because I was doing all those things. I learned what a proper advance looks like. I had been advancing prior to this, but after being part of like Jerome's advancing, and I see, you know, with real production and stuff like that, to see that, and that was a huge moment. And then just the general behavior that you should exhibit on a tour that size, and obviously merch. Never done merch before.
I forgot you were doing merch too, and driving. And driving. Jeez,
I loved it. But you saw me. I came in every day, dude. Just
I know.
I was. You can't be mad when you're in this industry because it's like every day I wake up and I'm like, dude, I have the best job ever. Like it's so
and that's
cool.
a good point about the advancing too. Is that like for me? So I've tour managed a lot of club and theater bands, and everything I've done, even merch advances and stuff. Like, and for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, advancing is just sending all the info to the venue prior to. So there's a little bit of like some, what would you call it? Like just like
structure.
A structure, yeah. Like
so basically, like, hey, this is when we want to come in. This is how much we're bringing. This is what we need from. Basically, this is what you need.
The floor plan, like the plans.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
This is what I'm giving you, and this is what I need from you.
Correct. Yeah. Setting everything up.
It
So
is absolutely integral to having a good show. Having a proper advance and a good rapport with the promoter rep or the production manager, whoever's doing it. Like, I mean, dude, you walk into that changes the way you walk into a venue.
For sure.
And the way people look at you. Because they'll look at the advance of the day and be like, oh, we're going to have a good day. Or they'll look at it and be like, these guys are rookies. You know?
I know.
Or on the other side of the venue, I can tell right away what kind of day I'm walking into. If I send out an advance and they kind of beat around the questions, they don't respond on time, it's like, okay, I know we're going to have a bit of a jazz day. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
Instead of structure, it's like, it's jazz. You know,
yeah. And that's what I was gonna say is that like I've never known what the proper anything is. Like it's more so like, well, I think this is how it should be done. Let me do my best advance. And more often than not, I don't think of everyone. Usually people are like, wow, your advance is pretty thorough. It's pretty straightforward. Like you put all the details in there.
Yep.
And we didn't have to ask any questions. And like you kind of just gotta like, if you don't have an example, you got to just be like, well, what would I want to know if I were going in there? But it's always good to see, like, I've always wondered, like, well, what are advances like at the next level? You know, the arena. I still to this day haven't seen an arena.
They can get slick, dude.
Yeah.
They're even now. Like I was just out with on that Keith tour because I TM for Keith too. So Bobby, he was TMing for Icon for Hire, who was also Guar's TM, and he showed me his advance for Guar, and that thing is a work of art because that's an intense advance. You know, I mean, they're bringing a lot of stuff into not a very big room, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's impressive. But yeah, Jerome's advance and just, they get real slick, man. And you just pick up things like when I was TMing for clubs and theaters, it was like, I was mostly learning how to advance by messing up because I would come in and something bad would happen. I'd be like, oh, this needs to be in the advance from now on.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's one way to learn. That's not a fun way to learn, but the best way to learn is just, you know, look at someone else's advance, like a proper band's advance, and be like, oh, and you don't have to copy it, but you just take tips. Like
for sure.
When I TM, I mean, I'm always, every tour I kind of like adjust my advance. Sometimes I take stuff out. I'm like, that doesn't need to be in there, or oh, I'd really like to have this in there. But yeah, I love it. I love advancing, man.
That tour that we met on was your first arena tour and my first arena tour. We did both, and I remember. I mean, it was very.
I would have never known that was your first arena tour.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that, and I remember meeting you and being like, so nervous. Like, not only is it my first arena tour, I'm like the point of contact for all of merch and
exactly.
like 4 bands, and I've never done this. And like, I still remember like the first day, like I was asking Terry, like, how much merch do I pull? Like, what do I do? Where do I take it? And like calling the rep, like, hey man, I have all this stuff. Like, do you want me to bring it up? And now it's just like, if they're not there waiting for like to pick up the merch, I'm calling them, being like,
exactly.
where are you guys at?
Yep.
Come get this stuff. I'm not even leaving the truck, you know?
Yep.
And which is like, it's not being, that's just the way it is now.
No,
like I
absolutely.
had to learn that that's how it is, you know? If you're on these amphitheater tours, your truck's in the middle of the parking lot, there's no way you're taking 100 boxes on a cart, like to,
It's just not, it's not proper.
Yeah. So there was just things like that like I had to learn, and I remember you saying that, and it was just a learning experience for both of us. So you were doing, merch plus tons of other jobs, but it was just a lot. And, as you were talking about earlier, like you could have turned down this gig, but like one thing I've always said, like as long as I've been touring and in this industry, is that like, it's one of the most important things that like you never know what one gig might lead to.
Absolutely.
Like imagine if you had not taken this gig for whatever reason. I
wouldn't be sitting right here right now.
Right.
Yeah.
You would not have, you wouldn't be playing for Keith, most likely.
Nope.
You wouldn't be checking for Shaun.
I'd probably be selling insurance right now.
I mean, I just...
You can only club tour for so long.
I know, and it's just like, it's so important to network, and it's so important to just meet people and just make an impression. And like, it kind of sucks because like you always got to be like on top of your shit, but like it's important. You really never know who you could be talking to. You know, like for example, Tyler, who is our VIP rep on this tour.
Yep.
The very first day, Dione was there in the trailer looking at all of our boxes, and like he's like, "Who's that?" And I was just like, "That's the band's manager." I was like, "You might want to go introduce yourself," But like, you would just looking at Dione, you wouldn't think.
No.
He's such a laid back, chill guy. He looks like one of us. He'd
Yeah.
be like, that's not the band's manager.
Sleeper.
But
He's got a sleeper mind.
yeah, I love that about Dione, But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine if Dione had walked up to me, which he did on the first tour that I did with them, and like, I would have been like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm setting up merch. Like, go over there or something, Like, who's this guy bothering me? Next thing you know, it's the band's manager.
Yeah.
You never know who you're talking to. And, because of that, like, you went from, doing 3-4 jobs for the first of 4 to drum teching for the headliner, 2 years later. And it's just crazy. And I don't know if you ever think about that. I think about that stuff all the time.
I do.
I
have a policy. I mean, it's something that's really important to me. I mean, just as a person, but especially as a roadie, just treating everyone really well and making, and not just being respectful, but like, dude, being nice is free, like just go in and smile at everybody, shake hands. Like, you're going to have a better day. I mean, especially as a TM, I go in there, like when you're in management roles, whether it's like a production manager, a stage manager or whatever, there's generally like 2 different ways you can go about it. You can get respect out of fear, which absolutely does work.
Which I've seen that before.
There's nothing wrong with that. But the way I like to do things is like, do be really nice to people, give them the benefit of the doubt. And when you do that, they want you to win. When you need something from them that they might necessarily not need to do, especially at club and theater touring levels, sometimes, shit hits the fan and you really need that promoter. You need a favor from them, but all day you've been really great to them. They get to that point, it's like, oh, this guy's nice. Like, I want him to win. I want him to have a good show. And, it's just like we were talking about. Like, just, you never know who you're going to meet, and you just want to be real friendly. And, like, when I leave venues on the club and touring level, I try and shake everybody's hand, especially the PM, the promoter, even, like, the security, everybody. Like, thank you for making my day easier, I want people to remember the camp I came with last time I was there. I'm like, oh, I remember their TM or whatever. Like, he was super nice. They put on a good show. They were professional. Like, I don't want to be the band leaving the venue to where they see our camp's name on their schedule next year and go, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, that's like my worst fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that exact feeling. And I've worked with not only tour managers that have done that to me, but band managers too, who have called me, you better have this, emailed to me by 8 a.m. tomorrow. And it's just like, I just finished a tour. You want like an expense report immediately, like 6 hours after we load it out. It's just like, just take it easy, man. But that's just really how this industry is. It's about networking and meeting people and treating people the right way. And, you really, for you, somebody who wants to be on the road a lot, like, I don't know, treating somebody a certain way and or meeting a certain person could have led you to way more work versus no work or something,
Exactly.
And I always say that, like in this industry, like the best and worst thing is that you never know what's going to happen next. Like
Exactly.
you could end up home for 6 months, or you could end up getting a gig working for your favorite band or something, and it's just something that goes along with everything.
Catboy has a saying that I really like when he's like, and he doesn't normally mean it, like, but if he's having a bad day, and it's never been on this camp, but it'll be like, I think it's when he's talking about, he sees the way some bands will treat their crew.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I wouldn't let them talk to me like that. I'll go home today and wait for my phone to ring. And I love that saying, because I'm like, I want to get there. I want that to be me, to where like I'm turning down more work because I'm busy all the time.
He's got a good point.
That's great. Like, that's such a baller statement. I'll go home, wait for my phone to ring. I'll give it 2 days, and that phone's gonna ring, and I'm gonna have work again. Like, that's I want to get there, man.
I was telling him about somebody else we know, talking about he used to tech for a certain band, and the guy threw a bass at him, and he was just like, Calvi was like, if you ever throw a bass at me, he's like, I ain't catching that thing. He's like, it's hitting the floor. He's just like, deck. And I'm not picking it up either. He was just like, I'm loading that truck out, but I'm not picking up that bass.
That's right, because he's a stud backline guy.
Yeah.
And he's been doing this. Everything we're talking about, he's been doing it for 40 years, because he's ancient.
Yeah, he is. You've been giving him a hard time about that on this one. He's been getting us good for a while, so it's about time he gets it back,
I still get it back way worse, man.
Yeah.
It's few and far between, but when he gets me, it stings.
Yeah, for sure, man. And as I was just saying, things you wouldn't be, one of the things you definitely wouldn't be playing for Keith. And I remember when we were on that tour, overhearing Jerome and Keith talk about possibly getting you to play drums, and they were like, yeah, he's got that laid back Taylor Hawkins vibe and everything.
The
and
hair.
Yeah, sure.
That's really the only reason I'm playing for Keith. It's like, he can't really play drums, but look at his hair. Like, you get a Taylor Hawkins guy.
Yeah, I remember them talking about that. But like, how, in a brief way, like, how did the whole thing go down?
It's actually kind of funny. So at that time, and this can be the case in a lot of tours, but when you're the TM for the first of 4 act, part of my job is really just to bug the headline TM. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, hey, man, my artist wants this thing. And,
okay.
So about 2 or 3 weeks in the tour, I had fully convinced myself Jerome hated me, which is silly, but like, you overthink.
It kind of feels that way when you're constantly bugging somebody.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Like, every time I see this guy, he's got to be thinking just, oh, this fucking idiot is back in my office. But anyway, towards the end of the tour, he texted me. He's like, oh, dude, do you play drums? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, Keith's looking for a drummer. I was like, oh, shit, hell yeah. So I listened to some of the songs, and right away I was like, oh my God, I love this music. Like,
and was this probably unreleased music at the time?
I think no.
Or maybe he had an album out?
He had his first album out.
Okay.
And I listened to not quite the whole album, but about 4 or 5 songs. And like right away, I was just like, oh my God, I love this music. The drums sound super fun. It's not the music that I've been playing. Like, typically coming up in this industry, I was much more of like a metal rock drummer, which now I'm trying to not necessarily get away from, but I like the more laid back, like straightforward rock stuff.
Okay.
Like, I like, of all the artists I played for, which I do a lot of session and fill-in work, so I played for a fair number of artists. I love playing Keith's music more than anything else. Like, it's just, it feels right. It's groovy. Anyway, so I got off that tour, and I had about 18 hours at home before I was flying out to do a tour. I was doing a tour playing for Otherwise. So I had 18 hours at home, and I went to the studio, and they wanted me to do 2 songs, film it, audition it. So I got to the studio, and I learned the songs in about 2 hours, and then I gave myself another 2-3 hours to shoot those 2 videos. And I shot them, I looked at them, and I was like, this is by far the worst audition video I have ever done, but I have no time. Like,
You just had to give them those takes.
I gotta go to bed. I gotta wash my clothes. I'm about to go out on that was a long tour. That tour I was going out on,
Yeah.
I think it was like 8 weeks. So I was like, here it is. You know, I didn't say that, but in my head, I'm like, this is rough. But
Yeah.
I figured, you know, it's better to just try. Like, I know they're not my best takes, but it's either this or I don't audition at all. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just, can we cuss?
Yeah.
All right,
Go
like,
for it.
Yeah, fuck it. I'll send it. So I sent it and I went out to tour with Otherwise, and I didn't hear anything for almost 3 weeks. So in my head, fully convinced, I'm just like, you know what? You win some, you lose some. It would have been cool.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
I remember you telling me about that now.
Yeah.
That you were just like, those were not great
They were
takes.
bad. They were real bad. I actually found one of them. I was cleaning out my hard drive a couple months ago, and I found one of them. I was like, oof. I don't know why, but yeah, about 2-3 weeks later, Jerome called me and was like, hey, Keith loves it. You're in. So that was, I mean, I was really excited for that one. Like that was one of the happier calls I've got in this industry. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like this guy, obviously he's a great dude, but like this guy writes music that I really believe in. And on top of that, he's surrounded by people that care about the project and are just studs at what they do. You know, something that's really important to me in my career is to surround yourself with people that inspire you. Like Cowboy, for instance. Cowboy and Jerome are probably two of the most inspirational people in my life.
Yeah.
Like I want to, every time, like they're my guys, you know, I give them shit, we dog on each other, but every time they do something like in this industry, I'm kind of just watching and taking notes. Like, you know, especially Cowboy. I'm like, dude, I want to be that stud backline guy. We always give him shit because we're like, you're a production manager, because he sees every angle to everything, like the whole day, not even just backline stuff. Like when I'm TMing for Keith, I'm consulting him a lot of the time, because like he's not a TM, but he sees stuff before it happens. Like,
Okay.
and I try to be like that, and I think I've gotten better at it. But Cowboy just sees every angle of everything that could go right and could go wrong. Like he's running it all in his head, and it's that quality by itself is already so important in this industry.
Very
to just be
valuable.
able, dude, just to be able to predict like, yeah, this is how this is set up, but if this happens, this is exactly how it's going to derail here and here and here.
For sure.
And it's just so clear to him. I think I have everything right, and then you're like, wait, nope, there's that little thing right there, and I hate it, but I love it because I like it's very valuable.
Yeah, I mean, anybody listening or watching, Cowboy, as we said earlier, plays guitar in Keith's band with Blake, and then he also guitar techs for Breaking Ben. But Jerome is our tour manager, and so I mean, you feel like Jerome, is it the same type of thing? Just
Well, a lot of that is partly because TMing is a passion of mine. It's something I do want to pursue more.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no one better. He's the GOAT. And the most impressive thing too isn't just about like how he TMs and, you know, him as a TM, but it's him as a person. He's juggling so much, even outside of the TM stuff, because now he's doing management.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's working at Grandview with Dione. And
but you'd never know it if you looked at him.
You'd never know it. And it's also just like he's very carefree on the surface. Like he's a goofy guy. He likes to laugh, like fuck with people. Like you don't see that quality in a lot of positions in management, like whether it be stage manager to like production manager, whatever. Like generally speaking, a lot of those guys are pretty cut and dry to the point, because you know that's part of the job. But he's got all this going on back here, but up front, he's just.
I know,
you know?
It's weird.
It's absolutely inspiring.
Yeah, and you know I don't even know. Cowboy's been touring, and they've both been touring since they were like 20 years old or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Cowboy has.
Yeah.
But I mean, speaking of that, you know, one of the most common questions that I get asked, you know, especially doing the podcast and the channel, and every time I post a video, it's like, you know, how did you get started? You know, people want to know how I got started in it, and I've somewhat kind of told people and told my story, but like, I don't know if I've ever asked you, like, you know, when you started touring and how and why and all that. I mean, did you like finish high school straight into touring, or what did you do?
No, I mean, this answer, I feel like with a lot of crew guys, it's always the same answer. I was in a band
Right.
at some point. You know
Which
what
is
I mean?
true, yeah. I mean, that
that's
is true.
Typically how it starts.
Right.
So I was in a band called Vindicate with one of my best friends, Eric Jensen, who's now the bassist of Escape the Fate. So I was playing with Eric. Eric had known Zach, the Zach Yosh manager I was talking about earlier with Powerline. He had known him prior to this, and one of the bands that Zach manages, Dead Rabbits, needed a drummer for a music video. And Eric was like, hey, take this guy, he'll do it. And part of the deal was too, the manager was like, hey, you're not in this band. Like, you're just going in for the music video.
Okay.
Don't get any ideas. Like, cool, whatever. So that's, for those who don't know, Dead Rabbits is one of my bands, the other band I play for. And Craig Mabbitt is the singer of that band. And Eric Jensen is the guitarist in that band. And we have Koba on bass. So I did that video, and it was a lot of fun. I fell in love with the guys. TJ Bell was in the band at the time. I think they needed to do a show in a couple weeks. Like, can you do the show? And I was like, sure. And then that turned into, hey, can you do this tour? I was like, sure.
As a drummer.
Yeah. And then it was like, can you write, like, can you record this song with us? And I was like, am I like in the band? Like, yeah, you're in the band. Like, okay, cool. And then shortly after I joined Dead Rabbits, Eric ended up starting to play live bass in Escape the Fate. Now he is a full-time member and writing and everything. But at the time, he was just doing bass, and they were kind of having him do some tech work. And at some point, it was just like, man, can you come out and maybe drum tech and help out a little bit? And kind of just snowballed from there. I worked for them for a long time. I still do. I mean, if I'm available and they need somebody, I'm more than happy to go back out with those guys. They're my brothers. I love those guys to death.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worked for them. And then you just meet people. I started working for other bands because of, this front of house guy worked with me on Escape. And then,
and then it just kind of went from there.
Exactly. That's like what you're saying, dude. If you really want to get into this industry, especially on the crew side of things, and you can afford it, just say yes to everything. Because even if it's a bad gig, you might meet somebody, you might impress somebody, and that could turn into.
That's what I had to do in the beginning, man.
Exactly.
My first tour, and people still have a hard time believing this. Or, dude, I got paid. It wasn't even a weekly rate. It was, hey, we're gonna do Mayhem Fest.
Yeah.
We can afford for the entire tour, 7 weeks long. I can give you $750.
Yep.
And it was like, well, if you divide that by 7 weeks, that's like $115 a week.
I've been there.
And it's like, dude, so many people called me like crazy, stupid. Like, what are you thinking? And I was just like,
I mean,
yeah,
don't
this
get me
was
wrong.
nearly 10 years ago.
Don't get me wrong. There's something to be said about, especially in this industry, there's people that feel very strongly about taking gigs for like really bad money for multiple reasons. Like, number one, obviously, you should know your worth. Like, that's probably the main one. But also, it can start to cannibalize the industry when you have a bunch of greenies coming out for $500 a week that aren't doing a good job, and it's costing people like seasoned roadies jobs.
100%.
It kind of hurts everybody when you do that.
I agree.
But when you're 20 years old and a punk band wants you to go do a club run for $500 for 6 weeks, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
100%. Yep.
And I did that for a long time, and I don't regret any of it. I mean, I've been broke my entire 20s, but I think, dude, my 20s have been like the happiest years of my life.
Sure. Yeah, and we were talking about that too. Actually, me, Keith, Cowboy, we were at the food court for like 2 hours just hanging out and talking about how the standard lifestyle that most Americans live is not what defines like who you are and defines how successful you are and defines your happiness. Like, just because you choose to not have kids doesn't mean you're unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Just because you're not making $200,000 a year doesn't mean you're unsuccessful.
Yeah.
It's like you can be happy making enough money just to live and live in an apartment or whatever.
Exactly.
And I've talked about that for years too. And it's like, especially out here on the road, like, especially out here on the road, you'll see that more often than not. Like, people don't have a typical home life, and some of them do, and they can balance it, but it's just not the same, and that shouldn't define who we are and everything.
The way you measure success varies person to person. For me, my mental health and my happiness and my relationships, if I'm happy and have good relationships with the people I care about, that is success. You know what I mean? Granted, money will stress me out, but I don't think I've ever been depressed because of my financial situation, which it's been very bad, but I'm like, you know what? It's good. I eat good food, and I'm surrounded by great people. Like, I don't know.
On a day off, you said you like to get food, but I know you're very much, is it ramen or pho that you're into?
I love ramen.
Ramen. Okay.
I'm kind of out on the pho thing. I don't know if I've ever had a good, I think I just need to have a proper bowl of pho.
Okay.
I've only tried it a handful of times, and it's just never really knocked my socks off. But dude, I'll tell you what, right now, if I'm having a bad day, that's my play. I'll go alone too, and it's like a whole experience. Like I'll go get a really good bowl of ramen. I'll eat it as fast as I can. Here's the thing with ramen: if you get a proper bowl of ramen, some tonkatsu pork broth, like heavily, cooked for 12 hours, dude, you eat it real fast. You kind of get like this like head rush.
In a good way?
Yeah, it's great. Dude, like all that salt, your face kind of gets swollen because all that salt and everything.
Whoa.
And you eat it really fast. It's hot.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just get like this. It's like your first cigarette all over again. It's like, and it's euphoric, dude. And it'll just zap me out of my mood. It's great.
I've never had it, dude. And like we talked about, I think maybe the last tour you were like, we should go sometime. And then that whole thing happened where you went on that day off. And
Yep. Oh, was that the day I had the really bad one? God,
yeah.
That was a canon event.
Yeah, I know. That. So you were saying, remind me again, what is it that, how can you tell it's a good
You can tell by looking at the
place?
menu. Like for starters, if they serve any ramen with chicken broth in the menu name, not only is that bowl of ramen not bad, it's just, that's not ramen.
Okay.
The whole place is probably not good because a proper ramen place would never do that. Like it doesn't have to be pork broth. It should be pork broth. But like there's miso based broths, there's shoyu based broths. But that's the first giveaway.
Just reading the menu.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then just stuff like you go in there and if does it seem like a California transplant place, like,
Okay.
I don't know. You kind of get a vibe.
Yeah.
But the menu one's big. Chains, typically don't go to a chain place. Jinya's all right. Jinya's not bad.
But you're looking for a local spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
Okay.
you look at the pictures and the reviews. The reviews are big. The big one. You want to see people saying like, "Oh my god, the broth is so flavorful," because it's supposed to be really intense.
Okay.
Like a proper tonkatsu broth should be like, it should explode in your mouth.
Okay.
But yeah, you can look at the pictures too. Like, what are they putting on top of it? Like, it's got to have the Naruto fish cakes. It's got to have the soft boiled egg.
So that one day, but didn't you say that one day the menu
it looked right, and the server sold it so hard, but it was
Right.
like the broth was just like water. Like there was just no
man.
flavor. Like the noodles weren't chewy.
Were you by yourself?
Yeah, I was. Well, luckily it wasn't a bad day. That one really sucked.
But I mean, and so as many cities as we've been to, you're not really. Are you looking for that on your days off, or are you? It's not always. It's not like an everyday thing, right?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. But there are certain places I remember. Like honestly, I think it was called Strings in Madison, Wisconsin, of all places. But that's probably the best bowl of ramen I've had in the States ever. I had some really good ramen in Australia because they're closer to Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, ramen, dude, that's great. But not just ramen. I mean, like I said, any like if you're in the Southwest, you got to go get some good Mexican food. Like just take advantage of where you are and what they're good at.
I need to start doing that, man. Like I swear, like I'm just too much of a. I'm a little tight. Like I like to be tight with money. So like
I know, and I'm like so bad. Like I'm not. I would consider myself bad with money, not because I don't do like crazy impulse buying, but I spend a lot of money on food.
Yeah, I don't
love
like
food.
Dude, if I go eat fast food, like, and I was expecting to spend 14 and then 17, I'm like,
upset.
Damn, I wish I would have skipped out on that one
I spent
thing.
$90 on breakfast today.
For two people, though.
Yeah, but for breakfast still.
That's still
that was just a diner.
That's a lot.
We got 2 pies.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even $50 is a lot for breakfast. Maybe not these days, but in my opinion it is. But $90? That pie was maybe $20.
Did you see me when I walked into this room today? I was glowing. I was stuffed full of banana cream pie.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely...
I got cream pie for breakfast.
Dude, that's great. And I need to do that more often, dude. I really do, man. Like, I don't enjoy...
See this? See what this is? This is my wing. I'm going to take you under my wing. Let me show you the way.
I was like, what am I looking at?
You're the cowboy. You're going to love that.
Oh, my God. I was just like, yeah, no, I really need to do that, man. But I'm glad anybody who takes advantage of where we are and actually makes, good use of it.
That's a big one, too. I know you don't drink too much, but when you go to bars, always get a local beer.
Yeah, it's
always.
I'm just like I'm more the guy that I just go with like what I know, and I
get it. I love me some butt beer, dude. And like Coors represent, dude. Coors Banquet. I love me some Banks. Yellow bellies. But No, dude, just going to any place and like, what would you like to drink? I'm like, well, you got any good local beers? And it's just nice. You know what I like about that whole thing with the food and the beer and all that is that it kind of like grounds you to where you are.
For sure.
It makes you, not that. It doesn't make you feel like a local, but it kind of just like, okay, this is where I am. This is what these people eat.
And this is kind of what I can get here.
Exactly.
And not
yeah. It makes
a few states away.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It really highlights the differences.
Yeah.
Because your days can start to feel weird, especially if you're kind of like eating the same stuff, but in different areas. Like, I don't know, it just throws you off a little bit. But being grounded on tour is something I think is really important to recognize where you are. It's one thing I like about van touring. And even bandwagon touring, it's like you're kind of watching the world go by. Whereas like in a bus, it's like a time machine. You get in one place and you wake up in another.
Somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like kind of just seeing the world happen around you as it does.
I kind of miss that.
It's grounding.
For sure.
It makes you feel more intimate with the whole experience,
But what's next for you, man? So you said this is the last thing for this year, and then you got what?
As of right now, I maybe have some work coming up in January, but I am looking. I could make it to my next gig in January, no problem. Mm-hmm. But I would like to. I mean, we were just talking about it. I don't want to sit at home for. God, that would be almost 2 months.
Can you say what you're doing in January, or it's something that's not announced?
It's not announced yet.
Okay.
It is with Escape.
Tech work.
Yeah.
Or TM work, or one of those.
Unclear.
Crew work.
Unclear.
Okay. Yet. Crew work though. Okay.
Crew work. Yeah. I'm not really looking for too much. If the right playing gig comes up, sure. But the thing is with the playing gig is that I'm not. A lot of bands want their guy, and that's one thing I'm very adamant about. I don't want to be anybody's guy. I'll be Keith's guy because I love the music. But
right.
All the bands I've played for in the past, I've told like, hey, you're in between drummers. Hell yeah, I'll take this gig or what have you. But I'm not shooting to be like. I don't want to go into the studio. I'm not very fond of the whole like dynamic of being in a band. Like that's what I love so much about the Keith thing is that it's Keith Wallen and like he treats us like equals. Absolutely, he treats us very well. But it is his thing. You know what I mean? For sure. Like I get to come in and do what I love and contribute what I want to contribute, but without being like, you get into splits and stuff like that. Like it gets weird. I'm out. I'm out on that.
So I mean, and then if not, you're going to Arizona, I guess. Where do you think you're going? If not, I know you like camping a lot, right?
Yeah, I'll be going home and I'll be doing a whole lot of fly fishing.
So you'll go out in the middle of where do you go? Like a lake or
no? There's a couple rivers about 4 hours from where I'm based in Arizona, and I'll go out there. Last time I was out there for 23 days
straight.
Yeah, I'll make trips into town to like get ice and food and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah.
You shitting in the woods out there?
Absolutely. It's the best way to shit, man. Get that breeze in there. Oh man.
No way. Dude.
Oh, dude, do you rate your poops?
I don't. Should I?
You should. I rate my poops every time. I had a 6 out of 10 today, but in the woods, it's always an 8+. I never had anything.
Just because of the location.
Oh, you can't beat that, dude. The view. And I'll like choose it too. I'll be hiking around one day and I'll be like, oh, that's where I'm going later.
Oh my god,
it's great.
Oh, and so you'll just stay out there for, like you said, 20. Like you're sleeping out there.
Yeah. So I built out my 4Runner. I have a 1998 3rd-gen 4Runner factory locker, 5-speed. It's my baby. And I built out a sleeping platform in the back. So there's no back seats. It's all flat, but it's elevated, and I have a drawer system. So I've got all my supplies and food and stuff like that. I've got solar. I've got I just built a pressurized heated shower on top of it, too. So I've got hot water, shower every day.
Wow.
I've got a little kitchen in there. I haven't put a fridge in yet. I might put a fridge in, but so far the cooler's been doing just fine for me.
Okay.
But I'll go out there and it's great, especially doing the touring thing, being around people all the time. It's really nice to just be alone.
I can imagine,
in somewhere you love. And I just grew up doing the outdoor thing. Like I love fishing, I love hunting. So just getting out there, I'll do the audiobooks, fish, hike around, and I'll download movies and I'll watch some movies and stuff like that. But
that sounds like the best thing to do after being on a tour with this many people.
Yep.
And
I love people. I love being around my people, dude. But it is quite nice to just kind of just.
Oh, I get that, man.
No phone signal. It's quite nice. I like it.
Well, I mean, are you still? You're on Instagram. People can find you at Beats by Blake.
Beats by Blake. That's
Yeah.
the one. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And yeah, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you and encouraging me to do this and being a part of this and my first guest, man. I just I feel like I should have done this sooner.
I loved it.
I wish I would have.
This is great.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing. Check out Infinity Now by Keith Wallen.
Yeah, that's your latest release.
Yep.
Came out a few months ago now, right? In the middle of the summer, I think.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, dude. Follow Beats by Blake, and we'll see you guys out on the road. If you are still here, I appreciate you sticking around until the end. I hope you enjoyed hearing Blake's stories about his experience in the touring industry. If there's something you have in mind that you'd like to hear in future episodes, leave a comment and let me know. Maybe it's a particular crew position that you're interested in, or a particular guest, or maybe a certain touring topic you want to learn more about. I'll do my best to fulfill those requests as they come in. But coming up next, I do have an episode with the guitar tech for Breaking Benjamin, Mike Warren, a very seasoned guitar tech to say the least. He's also part of Keith Wallen's band, as you probably heard in this episode. And I did that one on our last tour as well. And I do have to get that one edited, and I'll put it out as soon as I possibly can. But I do know it's a long one. I don't remember how long, but I remember we had a really good conversation, and it was quite a lengthy one. So that one could take me some time. But in case you hadn't noticed, some people seem to not realize that there are actually 2 YouTube channels, so I just wanted to clear that up a little bit. One of them is the podcast channel, where you get full-length episodes of the podcast, and then there's another channel, that's what I consider the main channel, that has all of the vlogs, live videos, podcast clips, and everything else. So be sure to check both of those out and subscribe to both if you feel so inclined to do so. And I'm also on all social media platforms as well. And you can also check out takemeontour.com to find everything all in one place. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. I really can't tell you how much it means to have any of you listening to anything that I have to say. So I appreciate anyone who takes the time out of their day to listen to this podcast. But I appreciate everything from all of you guys. And thank you guys so much for listening. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.